Hey, what is going on, everyone? It's me, Mr. Mario, and I just want to address something here real quick. If I sound a little bit different, I can assure you my microphone setup hasn't changed, audio setup hasn't changed. Your audio is still all good to go. Don't worry about that. This one is on me. My apologies in advance, although a little hard to control this one here. So one of those things that you apologize for, but don't really need to. I'm a little bit sick right now. Thankfully, everything is all good. I am on the recovery path, but last week I ended up getting a little bit of something, and when you just end up coughing and you cough so much that it kind of just thrashes your throat, yeah, that on top of just talking a lot and interacting with people a lot hasn't really helped out all too much. But I've been slowly recovering, and that is also why this episode was slightly delayed, just because my voice today while recording this is better than my voice yesterday and the day before that and the day before that. But I didn't want to delay any further than that. Either way, that's all to say here. Thanks for bearing that in mind. Thanks for bearing with me here. If my slightly raspy voice here, kind of my sick guy voice, is enough of a distraction, you can skip this episode. That's totally fine. But either way, let's go ahead and get actually into this episode here. So hey, what's going on, everyone? It's me, Mr. Mario, and welcome back to another episode of Mario's Minute. For those who do not know, this here is a podcast I do in two different forms. First of all, it is available in a video visual form here on the Mr. Mario 2011 YouTube, Rumble, and Odyssey channels. Additionally, it is also available like an actual podcast, so you can take it around and listen to it wherever the hell you want to in an audio-only form. Simply look up Mario's Minute on your favorite podcasting app, host, provider, or platform, and you should hopefully be able to find it. I know it's not available on all of them, but it is available on most of them. Either way, this here is my second podcast. My main one is Mod Chat, which is a little more structured, edited, and I talk about things that I find cool, new, and interesting with a bit of show and tell in the world of video game modding and video game console modding. This is not that, though. This here is Mario's Minute, where I come on here. Sometimes I have a guest, sometimes I don't. This here is a solo episode because we had Modsville USA on last episode, which was definitely a fun one. I try and alternate it month to month, but this is a series where I come on here and I talk about whatever the hell I want to once a month. And thankfully, the people who listen to it, they hang out, they seem to appreciate it, they seem to enjoy it, and I love interacting with you all on that. So a big shout out to you all if you tune into this, whether it is your first episode or your 89th episode or anything in between that. Either way, getting into this here, again, like I said, if my voice is struggling a little bit, my apologies on there, but I will certainly do my best on this. This did remind me, though, as I was talking about this, I didn't even have this on the show itinerary, right? And typically my itinerary, spoiler alert here, I guess I'm kind of like pulling back the veil on here a bit. I kind of just throw out like an outline of some things where it's like, okay, maybe these consistent things I'm going to touch up on here, and these are some things I might want to talk about, and if I have time and I feel like it, cool. But sometimes something like this gets added in here. So it is about sick voices, I guess you can say. This was from 8th grade, I want to say. It was my 8th grade language arts professor, or teacher, I suppose. But my 8th grade language arts teacher, we ended up doing something in Photo Story. And if you don't know what that is, I'll explain it a little bit, but I encourage you to open up a new tab and look up Photo Story. All one word. It's deprecated now, but it is a old application from Microsoft where it's a video editing and photo editing application, but not necessarily photos. It's what you can do is it is like a super simplified version of Windows Movie Maker, except only with photos. You can drop your photos in, you can put some effects, some transitions, you can change your timings on there, and then you could put in commentary, you can put in background music as well too. Do what you want to on there, and it ends up, kind of doing the transitions, and it moves across the photos in a cinematic type way and everything. It's a cool basic application because I remember there were some videos I did that with, and usually I would use Photo Story for like some ironic stuff in like videos I edited when I was younger. But I remember I saw it and I was like, even though it's not great, this is kind of meme worthy, and this is pretty cool because it ends up saving a lot of effort, because you really just, if you want it basic, you drag in your JPEGs, you drop them in there, you can put a music track on, and then that's it. You're off to the races. It does a lot of the fancier stuff for you, thankfully. It's not a great application, but hey, for something about 20 years ago, it worked pretty well. So it's long deprecated now, but it was funny because I've been doing video editing, just not even like professionally, not getting paid for it or whatever it was. I've just been doing video related stuff and video editing since I was a kid. And a few years before that, I was working a lot with Windows Movie Maker and cutting up different videos and such. A lot of it is just what I did for fun. So Photo Story, I remember that was really cool because we kind of got to blend in, the whole like video making process with language arts and the English class and everything. And we were supposed to pick we were supposed to find a figure, like a notable figure that we looked up to, and then do a presentation over it in the form of a photo story video. And it was great because I was helping out too, but it was great because I probably had such a dumb smile on my face when this happened because I was like, wait, I can actually get on the computer for this and use a microphone and edit a video all for a English class. This is going to be the easiest assignment I've ever had. And turns out it ended up being one of the easiest assignments I had because a lot of people were, they weren't comfortable talking into a mic. They didn't like their voice. They were struggling with the application, things like that. And then for me, I was like, I just need to know the application's name and then I can do this in my sleep because Photo Story was really easy, thankfully. But the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I don't quite remember what one of my best friends, the person he did his on. I'll actually talk about mine later, funny enough, so I guess it blends into this here. But the dirty thing was, one of my best friends, we had to do it like per week or something like that. So it was like, I think there was only a few people who could do their presentations per week on it. So I ended up knocking mine out, I think like the first week. And I will say a little bit of a humble brag here, but like, I had one of the best ones. It was like the music I picked was on point. I knew how to kind of balance the audio on there. I had talked into microphones for, a good amount of time at that point. I'm a lot better at it now. I still have to work on it, of course. But, 14-year-old me, I wasn't doing bad for myself at the time. And then, I did the research and it was over a topic that I was really passionate about. So it was easy A, right? Easy A there. So one of my friends, he had to record his, but in between doing the research for his topic and doing the actual video, he ended up getting sick, similar to me, and he ended up losing his voice. So his voice sounded even worse than mine right now. And he talked to the teacher about it, and he explained, hey, look, in the next day or two, my video is due. But the problem is I still need to do audio for it, and my voice is not good. And so I'm worried about that. And the teacher said, hey, don't worry about it. I understand you're sick. You can't help that. I can't really delay this for you. You still have to do your presentation on Wednesday, let's say. It's still due for you then. But I'm not going to take points off for you being sick. Like, that's just ridiculous. So he said, okay, cool. So he goes out, and actually, I think even with him, I think I helped him find the instrumental for the video that he picked out. So that was a funny thing too. But what happened was he ended up going home. He did the recording. He had the video exported. He brought it. He presented it on that Wednesday, let's say, and everything was all good. And, it didn't sound the best, of course, because he really had to kind of like push his voice a little bit, and he still had that sick guy voice, but it was fine for the most part there. Like, his research was on point. When we end up getting everything back, like I said, I ended up getting an A on it, easily enough. I knew I was like, mine was probably the best one in the class. I did have an unfair advantage, of course, but, hey, I used it to my advantage. His, though, he ended up getting a B on it, and he was mad because when he looked at the notes for it, I think there was like one or two things that had issues, but one of the bigger issues that ended up having him lose points on that assignment was that the teacher said that he had a weak voice. And we were dumbfounded, and especially him, because he's like, I talked to her about this. She said it was okay. I don't know why she's saying weak voice. She knew my voice was weak. She knew I was sick. Like, she knew this, and she told me it'd be okay, and she took points off for it. I think he did fine in the class in the end, but still just, that teacher non-accountability. Sometimes those experiences really sour you, unfortunately. So, yeah, that was a little bit of a thing there. So, Outside of that, there was one thing I was wanting to talk a little bit about. I was wanting to talk about a bag, not necessarily getting a bag, but more talking about buy it for life. And really, it's one of those things I've ranted with many people about it. And this is kind of even why I prefer some of the older stuff with technology or whatever it might be. Just because the old adage of they don't make it like they used to, or they don't make them like they used to be, it seems to ring true and truer at times. So I do love products that are buy it for life. And if you don't know about that, it's not like, oh, you have a perpetual ownership of this or something. It's more you can purchase something and 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years later, it's still going to be usable and it's still going to be in pretty good shape, pretty acceptable shape, to the point where you can still continue to use it. You could pass it on to a loved one. There wouldn't be any issues with those. And with how disposable and how fast at times things are made, like for example, we see it with fast fashion, we see it with electronics and such too, just failure rates on devices where that is to say, there's going to be things that of course will need their preventive maintenance, and they are going to need active maintenance at times. I'll say, like, for example, in our world here, in video games, if I went right now to a thrift store and picked up a Sega Genesis and just hooked it up to my TV, without even cleaning it or anything, it would probably work just fine. Now, do those things die? Yes. Do they need maintenance? Yes. They're going to need capacitors replaced. They're going to need to be cleaned up at times. They're not going to be indestructible tanks, but there's still something that you could enjoy for decades onward. If I go to a thrift store and I find one of my favorites here, so I'm talking really near and dear to me, an Xbox 360, there's a good chance I'm going to take it home and it's going to have issues. So there's also other times, if you know what to look for with the model and such, it should probably be okay. But what I'm saying is we've seen less and less of that reliability factor over the years. So the bag I'm talking about is a toiletry bag, funny enough. And I realize this because my girlfriend and I were talking about this here. I have one of these, and if you don't know what it is, I mean, just you could literally look up like a travel kit bag or a toiletry bag or something, and it's just going to be like a little, typically like a black zip-up bag where you could put your toothbrush, your toothpaste, whatever liquids you need to when you're traveling on a car ride or on a plane or whatever it might be on there. So I've always grown up with like these bags in the household and such, but it was funny because I've always had one on deck and, used it for travel, and that was all okay. But I ended up thanking one of my best friends for this because my girlfriend was kind of like commenting on my bag, more so how like I had to clean it because you have to clean those things. And the good news is, I took that thing, I ran it through the washer, and then I just, let it dry out on the table. Thing looks almost new at this point. It's great. But back in 2017, I want to say, one of my best friends ended up getting married. And I was part of the wedding party. And when I ended up going there, when he was giving out, like, he ended up giving out some, like, groomsmen gifts and such, and he put them all into these just, like, bog standard, boring-looking, black toiletry bags. And then you unzip it, and there was a few things in there that he had gotten for us that he wanted to, he wanted to impart, he wanted to give to us. And they were, like, mutually beneficial. There were some things he made, there were some things that could help us out. It was a very thoughtful present, it was all useful things. Now, this kind of goes to one of my usability philosophies, I suppose. I've just noticed with how I operate in general, and this is not a YouTube thing, this is kind of just, it's almost like a life philosophy type thing I have that I kind of adopted without realizing it. I usually will pick the second best thing, and by that I mean, let's say I have, in this example, let's say I have two computers, right? Or like two devices of some kind. Just pick any type of device. For the most part, there are going to be exceptions, but I could have two devices and one of them is going to be better than the other. So one of them will be like, the more top of the line, the premium one, let's say, and the other one is just going to be like a bog standard, like average one, or it might have some issues or something. A lot of times for me, I end up using that secondary one, the one that's not as good. I'll end up using that device more because my logic is, well, I can use this, I can abuse it, I can push it to the limits, and if it breaks, if there's something wrong with it, if something happens, at least I'm not putting that unnecessary wear and tear on the more important, the more premium device, and that way the nicer one there, I can kind of preserve that and kind of keep it for, special occasions or like when I really need to use something specific on there. That's just kind of how my brain works with it, right? So I'll do that, and then what ends up happening most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, I end up mainlining the secondary device, or the one that's not as good, because then I also like, it kind of becomes a game to me of like, oh, how far can I push this? What can I do with this here? That's kind of what happens with it. One of my old friends, for example, he did one of those things with a $500 car that he purchased. He bought this car. He did a few improvements on it. He bought it as a meme. I swear, he bought it as a joke because it was a $500 car. It was a piece of crap, but he didn't really care about that much. He didn't put that much maintenance into it. But then it ended up becoming his mainline car, even with all the use and abuse and everything. He ended up bringing his family around in it. He ended up doing some upgrades here and there. It's not like he like completely decked it out, right? But he did some stuff, like he like fixed up the upholstery a bit. He did some other band-aid fixes. He ended up putting like a little bit of a sound system in there. He had a little bit of a boom in there as well too, because then it turned out like he just had fun pushing that car to the limits consistently. And that's kind of how I will be with my devices. But when it came to this, I'm bringing up this toiletry bag here because I end up thanking my friend for getting this for me recently when I kind of had this realization. You see, when I got it, I already had a toiletry bag at home that was in better condition. It was a nicer model and such than this. Well, not better condition, but it was just a nicer one, essentially. So I said, oh, okay, cool. Well, that one, I actually ended up, I think I might have paid for it, or it was just a nicer one in general. And I said, okay, the toiletry bag, the one that I got as a present, it was a gift. It was given to me for free. I can tell it was one of the cheaper ones here. So you know what? Just kind of to be polite, but also to save the one that I was using, the nicer one. I said, I'm just going to take this one here, the one that I got as a gift. I'm going to use the absolute hell out of it. I'll just push it to its limits. And then whenever it inevitably falls apart, gets ripped up, whatever it is, I can just throw it away. And then I'll end up using my nicer one. So it's been about 8 years since that happened, right? And I realized after 8 years, I don't remember what my nice one looks like. I don't know where it is. I think I probably donated it, got rid of it, or something like that. I don't know. And on top of that, with this toiletry bag here, the one that I was just bashing a minute or two ago, this ended up becoming my mainline toiletry bag. Like, I've just default to it. I've consistently used it here. And because of it as well, too, I have packed this thing to the brim, to the max. I have stretched this thing. I have done what I could do with it, right? Like just, put as much stuff in there, taking it to different countries, flown with it, all that stuff. Really gotten mileage out of this, literally and figuratively. And I looked at it and I'm like, aside from it needing a cleaning, it's pretty much in the same shape it was when I got it. So that's all to say. I swear, this company doesn't know who I am because I've never bought anything from it. It was my friend who bought it, not sponsored or anything. I will have, in the video upload, I'll probably have I will have an affiliate link to this here. But it's from this brand named Rothko. And I bring this up because I end up thanking my friend about this, and he really appreciated the kind words. He ended up looking it up in his order history, and he told me what the brand name was. It turns out it was also, I guess, designed for kind of like top grade and like military use as well too, funny enough. And this thing even right now, this is in USD 2025 right now as I'm recording this, well, quarter to 2025, I guess. This is subject to change. It's a $12 bag. It's nothing like super expensive. It's nothing super premium. It is a $12 bag. So I think he was just as surprised as I was with this. And now he's wanting to get one of these for himself because I know, and no disrespect to him, I understand. I know he just went online and he bought like the cheapest ones he could get because he was just giving them out as gifts and he didn't think that we were going to actually use them. But it turned out this ended up being one of the best throwaway gifts I ever got. And I think it's a little bit of a buy it for life thing because like I said, it's been about 8 years of me heavily using and abusing this, and it pretty much looks the same as the day I got it. So that's a nice little buy it for life thing there. If I can, if I can impart anything like that, if you're interested, if you haven't even thought of getting a toiletry bag, but you're like, I need one of those, this one is actually pretty good. In all honesty, it's been pretty good. It's basic, but it gets the job done and it's going to survive, whatever you're going to put through it. Except for maybe like if you throw in a fire or something, sure, but like within reason is what I'm saying. Let me get some tea here. Oh, okay. So, this is a little bit of I'm not really talking about anything current here because I was more just kind of like thinking of a few things I wanted to discuss. But this is a story not necessarily from me, but from one of my best friends. This is the story of, I shared this recently. It was actually on Blue Sky. I had talked about this because it was an exchange with, I believe it was Swift on Security. But this is the long short of it is sometimes if you are running into an issue with a company, if you're able to find the CEO's email address, and I'm not talking about anything like malicious or, hacking worthy or any of that, just through like a few Google searches and such, right? If you're able to find the CEO's email address and email them about an issue that you are at a complete stopgap with, let's say you've tried to go through the proper channels and support and they're not helping, sometimes just going right to the top helps out. And with these big companies, you might not think it does, but the thing that I kind of have to remind myself of is typically, it's not going to be all the time. There will be annoying people, of course, who will, email, let's say the CEO for no proper reason or no good reason. But most of the time, if you're going to be going out of your way to email someone, or I guess if you're going out of your way for that, typically the emails that hit these inboxes externally, not like internal to the organization, but externally, it's going to be from spam, phishing, or people who do seriously have an issue that they want resolved. And I bring this up here because I want to tell the story of when one of my best friends ended up emailing Bill Gates. This sounds like, I swear this sounds like one of those things where it might be like, oh yeah, my uncle works for Microsoft or something, but no, like this actually happened. So laying it down for you all, this happened when Bill Gates, and let me see when this was, when he stopped being CEO. Microsoft CEO, because I don't know what year he dropped. Actually, he was succeeded. Oh, you know what? Funny enough, this makes it even funnier. It wasn't the top brass here. I guess looking at this, I'm just kind of reading this a bit here. According to the Wikipedia, it looks like he ended up resigning. I actually forgot about this bit. Bill ended up resigning as CEO of Microsoft in 2000. And then he transitioned to a chief software architect, and he held that until 2008. So funny enough, this makes it even a little bit better too, because I guess this kind of shows like, the pull and care that's there. So this is actually outside that timeline, right? So Bill Gates was no longer CEO. And apparently I'm sure he still had, influence and such at Microsoft, but he wasn't the top brass anymore. Although, let's be real, Bill's always going to be the top brass. So this was in 2010 or 2011. I want to say it was 2011. If not, it was definitely 2010, but 2011 sounds about right. One of my best friends was never good with, he's better now, but at the time, I don't know what it was. He was never good with holding on to his accounts. And by that, I mean, I don't know where he would enter his accounts on, but he had his Twitter account hacked 3 or 4 different times. I was there for one of them. I remember we were in college together as well too. We were at the student union, and he pulls out his phone, he's browsing, and he just yells. He's like, damn it. And he threw his phone down on the table. He's like, damn it, my Twitter account got hacked again. And that was like the second or third time. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Where are you putting where are you signing into? He's like, I don't know. I don't do any of that. And I'm like, I have no idea, man. And then funny enough, I ended up talking to one of my other friends about this, and he was even like, dude, I don't know what that guy does. I think he just signs into like different places with his account or something. I don't know, because like I have these same accounts as him, but I don't log into other places, and my accounts have never been hacked. His Twitter's been hacked 3 times. And my friend is respectfully like, he's a no one in the Twitter sphere. So typically every single time his account got hacked on Twitter, the hackers would take his account, change the login information, and then would just sit on it. Every single time. So what happened was at one point he had something that was a little more personal to him. He had his Xbox Live account hacked. To this day, he does not know how it got hacked, right? He was trying to say like he didn't put in his login credentials into any shady places. I don't think he tried any of those like Microsoft point spoofers or generators or gold spoofers or any of that. Because he also, even at the time, he didn't have a modified system, but he didn't fall for any of the phishing stuff, I would believe, I guess. So I don't know. I really don't know here. But what ended up happening was in 2011, he ended up getting his gamer tag stolen. And it was pretty much the same thing. They ended up, like, whoever hacked it, they stole his gamer tag. He didn't have anything substantial on there. He didn't have a credit card. He didn't have a high gamer score. He was not known at any sort of level. Nothing like that, right? But he got his account stolen, the login info was changed, and then the account just sat there. It wasn't being used, it wasn't being gamed on, the gamer tag didn't change, none of that. It was strange. And this is kind of a consistent thing that happened. So he ended up contacting, Xbox support as you would. He went through the processes there. They gave him they gave him a ticket number, and he periodically checked on it. And for several months, nothing happened, right? So imagine my surprise when there was one time, it was over the summer. So now I remember where I was at. It was definitely 2011. It was over the summer. His account pops online and he sends me a chat request. And I'm like, okay. So I open up the notification. I jump in there with my microphone and it's him. And I'm like, wait, what's going on? And he's like, oh yeah, dude, I got my account back. I didn't tell you. And I was like, when? He's like, oh, I just got it back. I got it back like yesterday, but I'm signing into it today for the first time. I was like, how did you get it back? He's like, oh, I emailed Bill Gates. I'm like, what? I thought he was messing with me. He's like, no, dude, I'm serious. I emailed Bill Gates. And I was like, really? You expect me to believe that? He's like, no, dude, I'm serious. I emailed Bill Gates and I got my account back. I'm like, okay, Bill did not talk to you. He's like, no, Bill did not talk to me. But apparently this is what happened. And this is why, again, you don't want to fully dismiss these things. So he ended up just in a last-ditch effort. He was just at a point, he had hit a complete brick wall with Microsoft support. He was not getting any traction on getting his account back. He had been 2 or 3 months without his gamer tag at this point. And I don't think I think he might have created a new one at one point, but he barely used it because, all of his stuff that he cared about was on his main account. So what happened was just in a last-ditch effort, he found Bill's Microsoft email address. He ended up shooting him an email and just essentially explained what was going on and said, this is what's happening here. I've tried contacting support. Here is my ticket number. My account got hacked. I don't know how it got hacked. I've been waiting to get my account back. I cannot get it back. This is probably a dead end, but if you can help me in any way, that'd be awesome. So to his credit, Bill Gates did not reply to him. But I legitimately believe either Bill might have seen this and forwarded it to the right people, or he just had other people who were looking at his inbox. I don't know how, without looking up, I don't know how he runs his inbox, right? But I know he's got to get so many emails in there. But the point was, within a day or two of sending that email, my friend ended up getting a few emails back from Microsoft support. And one of them was something like, hey, this just to let you know, we're continuing to work on your case. And then within hours, he got another email and he also got a call back from Microsoft. And it was a support agent who essentially said, hey, look, we apologize for the delay on here, but we want to let you know that we've now been able to get you into your account. We've been able to claim it back. We'd like to give it to you, but we would like to verify who you are. So my friend verified who he was. They said, awesome. So which email do we need to assign it to? We're going to assign it to this one. Awesome. We're going to give you a temporary password. Can you please go in there when you sign in with that password? You're going to need to change it. Again, we're really apologetic about how long it took here. And as a added apology, please check your email. And I believe they gave him not $2,000. I want to say it was like $20 or $25 in Microsoft points. And they also gave him like 3 months of Xbox Live, just as an apology there. I think retail value that altogether would have been under $50, but still that was really nice. It meant a lot, for someone who just didn't think he was going to get his account back there. And I was like, they didn't have to do that, but that was cool. Since then, he hasn't gotten his Microsoft or his gamer tag, jacked or anything. I think he probably learned harder from that afterwards. Well, actually, no, because the Twitter thing happened later, but still. His gamer tag is safe, is what I'm trying to say. And what I'm saying here as well, too, is that sometimes you'll be surprised at how well that works. This is going into a very old episode of Mario's Minute, but I even shared this on Blue Sky as well, too, when I talked about this. That same thing kind of had to happen to me where this is years ago. I was dealing with a bank-related issue where it was like I was getting shuffled from like one bank to another, and I needed a document that was related to my taxes, and I really needed this before a certain date, and I was getting the runaround from support. And I remember I looked it up with this bank, and I found a comment, like this bank had scathing reviews, but there was one reply, like one review that had 5 stars. and they said something like, a lot of people are complaining about the support and lack of support they've been getting from this bank, but honestly, they're really not that bad. All you have to do is email the CEO, here's his email, and the VP, here's his email, and I emailed them, and within a day, I was able to get sorted. And would you believe, like, that same thing ended up happening with me? I was kind of in a last-ditch effort. I was very respectful. I opened up my email. I explained everything to them. I had evidence. I ended up putting both their emails in there, and the CEO never replied to me. But it was the VP and it was in the evening, right? It was not during business hours. It was in the evening. I think within 45 minutes, I ended up getting an email back from them, and they apologized. They said, "We are so sorry you've been dealing with this. We're going to take this very seriously. This is to let you know we have gotten it into this person's hands here. You're going to hear from them here. They're going to reach out to you tomorrow. We should have this ironed out for you by end of day tomorrow." And it wasn't that quick. It ended up taking 2 days to resolve it instead of 1 day. But that was still a lot better than where I was at before. So again, this can work. This can work. What I'm saying is, don't abuse it here. Don't just be all like, "Hey, I stubbed my toe, help me out." But if you're really needing to get somewhere and you're not getting to that place and support's not helping you out, sometimes that can help out. So let's see. I'm going to, here, I've really just storytelling for this episode here. But I'm going to get into a game store story. I'm actually going to do 2 of them here because there was one of them. Here's the thing. One of them might be a redux of something that I've shared before in an older episode, but then it reminded me of another one. So I'm like, you know what? We're going to get a 2-for-1 special here. So I'll actually do this in chronological order. So for people who do not know, when I was in high school for about 2.5 years, I ended up working for a local mom pop video game store. We ended up having 2 locations, and they've been closed down for so many years now at this point. But it was one of those jobs where it was my first job that I had. First job, I was paying taxes with and such. Fun job and also bad job all at the same time. Bad because it was just a retail job. Even if you're surrounded by video games and stuff, you're not playing video games all day. That's also where I learned I'm more of an introvert as opposed to an extrovert. I was kind of just tired dealing with people all day. Also, surprisingly, kind of developed a disdain for video games. So I worked there for about 2.5 years, and for about 2 years, I barely played any video games. It's funny how that works out. But yeah, what happened was we had several employees, and kind of the last summer I worked there, we had ended up hiring a few other employees to, we were expanding, we were growing, and also to kind of like cycle me out, because I will say I was damn good at my job. I was. So they kind of needed probably at least 2 younger employees to replace me properly. And even then they were flubbing here and there on certain things. So there was one, we're going to call this guy Jack. He was a employee who was under me. He was just newer than me. That was it. I wasn't a supervisor or manager or anything. I had keys at the store, but I was, still a sales associate. And then let's say my manager, we're going to call him Ethan for this, right? So I don't know what was going on with this guy, Jack, but usually with me, he was fine. And I pride myself on this. The entire time I worked there, I was only ever late for 1 shift. And I had a really good reason for it. And I explained it to my manager. I was 3 minutes late. And I was pretty much like, "Hey, I left the house and I forgot something, so I had to go back. But because I knew I was going to be late, I brought you the soda." And he enjoyed that. So, yeah, no, with this guy, Jack here, he was never late with me. Whenever we shared a shift, whenever we worked together, he was never late. But apparently, whenever he would work under my manager, Ethan, he would end up being late. And it was Ethan was telling me about this, and he was like, "Dude, this is a problem. He keeps coming in." And it's not just that he's coming in late, it's that he's making up these excuses. And I was like, "What do you mean?" And he said, "Well, there was one day he was late, and he said that he was late because I think there was 3 times. One time he was late because he did not have a single piece of clean clothing to wear at all, and all the clothing that was clean was not wearable because it was in the washer and not in the dryer, so it was still wet, and he couldn't wear wet clothes." The second time he was late was that I think it was something like he was going to take a shower, but there was no hot water at his house, And I don't believe this for a second, right? This dude his parents were quite well off. So I don't believe this for a second here. But apparently there was no hot water at his house. So he was trying to get into the water, but it was too cold for him to actually like properly get in there. So he had to wait until he had hot water and until it changed over, and then he was able to take a shower. And then the other one was, what was it? They were all ridiculous, but the other one was he had an alarm clock set because he had already been late several times. And I guess he claimed that even though his alarm clock was set, his mom came into his room in the middle of the night and disconnected his alarm clock for some reason, and then his phone ended up dying, so then his alarm didn't go off. So it was just, if these sound like ridiculous excuses, keep in mind this dude was 17, I want to say. I think he was 16 or 17 at the time. So if these sound like outlandish, kind of outrageous and like unbelievable excuses that a teenager would make up, it's probably because it was that. But I remember there was one time Jack was late, and coincidentally, it was the time I was working with Ethan, and we were waiting for him to come over for his shift. Like, Jack was supposed to be coming over. We're waiting on him to show up. Ethan is telling me about all of this. And then when Jack ends up finally showing up, he comes over, a few minutes late. Ethan just calls it out, and he's like, "Oh, hey, Jack, what's going on? So you're late again. So which one is it this time? Are you late because you didn't have any clean clothing? Or are you late because you ran out of hot water? Or, oh, wait a minute, are you late because both of your alarm clocks didn't work?" And I don't think he had anything to say to that one. The other one was, other story, I guess, getting into this. It ends up still being related to these two guys, right? Ethan, again, he's the manager. Jack ends up being the coworker who's working under me. And it was funny because it was essentially like he worked really well. He was a fantastic employee. There were many times my boss even said, which, this is kind of dirty because then my boss ended up doing him dirty later on. But my boss even said, he's like, "Dude, if I could clone Ethan, like, we'd be good." He was even like with me too. He's like, if I could clone the both of you, like, we'd be unstoppable here. So we could have been like, I guess, best game store employees ever, maybe. And in some kind of other lifetime, we would see. But what happened was, for a bit, my manager, this is Ethan, he was leaving a little early, which he had never done before. There were a few times our boss ended up dismissing us early, and that was cool, but he never really left early on his own volition. And this was shortly after he had gotten married and his wife just had a kid, so this is shortly after all that had happened. Now, what happened was, let's say Ethan was supposed to get off at 5 o'clock, right? So there was one time I was working with him, and he leaves like 5 minutes early. He's like, "Hey, man, I'm going to take off. Do you mind?" I was like, "Oh, it's 5 minutes. No, go ahead." He's like, "Okay, cool. Thank you. Appreciate you. I'll see you." So he left 5 minutes early. Next time I work with him, he leaves 10 minutes early. Same thing. It's 4:50. He's like, "Hey, man, I'm going to take off early. I need to get home. Do you mind?" I was like, "No, I don't mind. I got it." He's like, "Cool. All right. See you, man. Thanks. Appreciate you." I was like, "Cool. Yeah, I'll see you tomorrow." The next time we work together, he ends up leaving 15 minutes early. And I'm like, okay, this dude's pushing a little bit. It's growing each time. So same thing. He runs it by me because legitimately, like, my manager, he was one of my best friends, but he runs it by me. He's like, "Hey, man, I'm going to be leaving, 15 minutes early. I got to get back home. Is that cool?" I was like, "Yeah, I got you, man. Don't worry about it." He's like, "Okay, cool. I'll see you." So now the fourth time, I was not there for this. Funny enough, I'd actually gotten off a little early, and I went over to our first store because we got moved over to the second store because that was the bigger and better one and had more foot traffic. I ended up going back to the first store, and I was there I think I was like talking out like with some of the employees there. I was hanging out. I was looking for, a few new games, things like that. And then at one point, my boss, not the manager, my boss ends up, he has a question. He needed to check inventory or something like that. So I was not working at the second store at that point. Like, I had been let go like an hour or two earlier. Like, I was released from my shift. So he ends up getting on the phone. He calls the second store. And he's like, "Hey, can I talk to Ethan?" And they're like, "Oh, no, you can't. Ethan's gone." My boss like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, no, he went home early." And he was just like, "Wait, who?" He went home early? Like, what time is it? Like, look, it's what? It's 4:40. He's not supposed to be off. He's not supposed to be off early. He doesn't get off at 4:40. He gets off at 5. Why did he go home? And you could just tell my boss was not happy about that at all, right? Excuse me. Let me get some water. Finish this up here. Hey, we keep it casual here, right? On Mars Minute, we keep it real casual. Okay. I think we're good. So I had kind of just taken note of that, right? So the next time it was several days later. The next time I was working my shift over at the second store, it's now 4:30. We're talking 30 minutes early. My manager didn't even ask me at this point. He took his belongings, he put his sunglasses on, he starts leaving, and he's like, all right, man, I'm going to go. See ya. And I was like, whoa, wait, what are you doing? And he was like, I'm going home. I got to get back to my wife early. I got to go home. And I was like, dude, just so you know, the boss didn't like that. Like, I was trying to help him out. I was trying to give him a heads up. And he was like, what are you talking about? Like, do you have an issue with me leaving? And I said, no. And then he points at Jack. He's like, Jack, do you have an issue with me leaving early? And Jack says, no. And then Ethan says, okay, so you don't have an issue with me leaving early. You don't have an issue with me leaving early. So is there an issue with me leaving early? And I'm like, look, dude, I don't have an issue with you leaving early. I really don't. But I'm just trying to tell you that our boss got mad about that. And he was like, our boss isn't here. How do you know that? I was like, because a few days ago, I was over at the first location and the boss ended up calling in and he wanted to talk to you right before your shift was over, but you ended up leaving early and he was mad about it. I saw him. I saw his reaction. He was not happy. So I'm just trying to help you out here. Like, you can do what you want to on this. And then that kind of turned into, and this is why I guess it's lead by example, I suppose you can say. Because then while we're having this conversation, Jack ends up coming next to me and he's like, wait a minute, it's 4:35 and I get off at 5. So if Ethan gets off at 5 and he's leaving now, that means I can leave now, right? And I just kind of covered my face. I'm like, no, dude, no, that's not what that means. So usually my boss was usually my manager, he was pretty chill about things, right? But he ended up not being happy about this one. And he was trying to make excuses. And it was funny because he was like trying to like reason with me here in a way. And he was like, dude, I have to go. I have to get back home. I got the baby at home. I have to go trade off the baby with my wife before she ends up going to work. You remember her, right? And I'm like, dude, I understand. I'm not trying to stop you. But what I'm doing is I'm telling you the last time you end up leaving early, because you've been leaving earlier every single time. Again, I'm not the one with an issue with it. I'm not your boss. But every time you leave early, it's earlier and earlier. And the last time it happened, our boss found out and he was not happy. I'm just telling you that. Do with it what you will. So I don't think he ended up leaving early after that. But the solution at that time ended up being... my manager ended up just doing a little bit of a little kid move. Instead of leaving, he was on the other side of the counter, like in front of our DVDs. And I remember he just stood there. And I think even for part of it, he kind of even like crossed his arms together. And he was just kind of there fuming and kind of looking at me a little bit, right? And he waited. And you know, we didn't really get many customers. We didn't get any calls. We held it down. As soon as 5 o'clock rolls around, he looks at his watch and he's like, okay, it's 5 o'clock now. Can I go now? And I was like, dude, yeah, you're off the shift. That's fine. I wasn't stopping you from going, but you could have left at any time. I was just telling you that our boss was not happy when you left early. And then he ended up leaving. And after that, he was a fine sport about it. But yeah, that's sometimes that's just how it goes in game shops. It was a fun dynamic. Would I go back to it? No. Because I've had the opportunities to go back and I'm like, you know, I will be a patron. I'll be a customer. I'll be the person, you know, I'll talk with other customers. I can maybe help out a little bit with a game recommendation. I'll talk to the employees, but I'm not going to try to overstay my welcome there. But working at one, preferably not. So wrapping this episode up here, usually one of the last things I do talk about is what games I'm currently playing. So let me actually see what I ended up finishing here. Unfortunately, I ended up only finishing one. Oh, that was a good one, though. That was a good one. I ended up only finishing one game, this month because it kind of became a bit of an eventful month. But the game I ended up finishing was Spec Ops: The Line, or Special Ops: The Line. Now, I've mostly been, even before like the resurgence, and I was talking about this before, but even before like, kind of the resurgence the Xbox 360 had with like bad update and such, this year I was kind of a lot more on Xbox 360 than I normally was. So this is a game I have on the 360, and I wanted to play it. I had actually, according to my achievements, I had played it several times before. I started this game probably 2-3 times, but I never end up just sitting down and finishing it. So I finally decided to do this. Absolutely worth it. Really, my only regret was not doing it sooner. It is a fantastic game. The way the world is built out there, the whole world building of it, it doesn't necessarily take a side in a way, which is because it's, it was during that time of like generic like war games where like it's like Americans versus the Middle East. Like that's what was going on there. So I mean, we saw it in like the Call of Duty games, for example. We've seen it in so many war shooters like that. But this one was different because it's like, there's going to be some spoilers, but the game is so old at this point, I don't feel too bad talking about this here. If you want to skip ahead, that's all good. But essentially, you're going into Dubai, but it's not just you versus the bad guys that end up being somebody from, the opposite side of the world. Like your team, your people, you yourself end up doing bad things. There's a whole psychological component to it as well too. And it's really interesting to see how it all plays out. And I will say by the ending, like as I was seeing the ending playing through, my jaw just completely dropped. It makes you question a few things. It really makes you question like morality on certain things. There's going to be like decisions you make, and one of the things it really tries to hammer into you is like you always have the choice. You always have the choice. The choice is yours. So you're sitting there playing through the game, getting further of like, did I have to do that? I thought I had to do that here. Like, could I have chosen not to do that? I don't know. So even for that, I'm sure it's going to be a great game to go back to and replay. But no, it was one of the best games I've played in a while. Even the way the game itself is built, like the gunplay is fantastic. The pacing was great. I didn't try the multiplayer. I know that was during the era of like tacked on multiplayer, which now, funny enough, we're at a point where people miss tacked on multiplayer on single player games. I'll be honest, I never thought we'd get to that point. I really never thought we'd get to that point, but that kind of shows where the generation and where the gaming industry is right now, I feel like, and how consumers are taking it. It's a weird thing to miss, is what I'm saying, right? But I guess I can see the appeal to it. So what with Spec Ops, though, what I was talking about was the gunplay was great. The game still looks great. It handles well. Even many of the times, I love the destructible environments that you could choose to destroy as well too. But there were many times where it's like you can shoot out like a wall of windows, and then you end up taking out a bunch of enemies through a sand trap, essentially. And that was so cool. And it's awesome because it's like I was seeing things in this game that you don't see in games anymore. And this is not a new game. This game is from 2012. There was never a sequel to it. I don't think it needs a sequel, but there was never a sequel to it. It doesn't really get that much love aside from when people talk about it. Whenever, inevitably, in every single internet conversation, when you see people bring up Spec Ops: The Line, almost all the comments are like, yo, that is one of the best games ever. That game was amazing. I love that game. I started it thinking it was just going to be a generic bro military shooter, and whoa, my mind was blown. And that's pretty accurate with how it goes. I think one of the best details as well, too, was the game ends up, even the meta of the game ends up changing as you're playing it. As you go through the game, I'll tell you all, I do not encourage you to play through it in one sitting. Play through several different sittings of it. Because as you play through it, the game starts to change. The menus start to change. The loading sequences start to change. The messages, like the little tips in the loading screen, start to change as well too. Like there's things where, I think one of them was something like, doing this bad thing is going to have consequences, but you realize this is a video game, so if it doesn't exist, why does any of this matter? Like, it starts to get kind of like existential on that as well too. Overall, fantastic game. I can't say enough good things about it, aside from it needs more recognition. So yeah, it hasn't gotten like a remaster or a remake or anything, and I'm not sure what is behind that there. So really, aside from getting it on PC, you really have to play it on some of the original systems that came out on like 360 or PS3, or I suppose emulate it. I actually don't know if it's a backwards compatible title on Xbox One, Xbox Series, but it's a great game if you haven't played it. The other one I'm currently in the process of playing right now, and I'm trying to stick to this. I'm borrowing it. I'm sticking with it. I'm not starting any other like games right now, especially no other RPGs. So no Exhibition 33 for me at this time. No Oblivion remaster. Split Fiction. I'm waiting to pick that up at one point. Those are like the only like 3 games, which they seem to be great, but those are only like 3 games that have released in 2025, net new. Oblivion's kind of pushing it, but like newer 2025 games that I'm actually really interested in picking up. So the one I've been playing, though, it's a little bit older. It's RoboCop Rogue City. Now, this game came out in 2023, and in 2023, it was a really busy, really stressful, really wild year for me. So if I look back at my gaming habits then, I didn't really play a lot of new stuff. I was mostly playing quick games and games that I was familiar with, because quite frankly, I just didn't really have the mental fortitude at that time to take on and enjoy like a brand new, like epic, crazy, wild RPG that will bring a tear to your eye. Like, no, I didn't have the energy for that. But RoboCop ended up coming out, and I will say, let me start with like the bad on it first. It is a cheesy, silly, not the most polished B-movie-esque type game, right? And it shows a lot of the, unfortunately, this could be a whole other topic. It shows the imperfections with Unreal Engine. When it's not going to be properly optimized, when it's going to have visual and graphical glitches, when it just doesn't look or run as well as it should. Also with the way it looks as well too, I think people might say, if they look at it, like if you look at screenshots, people might say, oh, it looks like a PS3 game. To that, I'll say, no, PS3 games definitely looked worse. But I can understand it because of the aesthetic and the color choices, like the color palette they chose on there. Yeah, if you just glance at it, it's honestly gonna, like, whenever I would see screenshots, I was like, why are people, are they playing Fallout? Like, it looked like Fallout 3 or Fallout 4 to me, funny enough. So I think probably Fallout 4, that didn't have as much of the tint and filter on there. But the good news on it, it is a cheesy, silly, not well optimized B-movie cheesy type game. And that is exactly what it needs to be. In 2023, were people asking for a new RoboCop game? No. In 2023, did we suddenly get a new RoboCop game? Yes, we did. And it's great. Keep in mind, I am not, it appeals to everyone, I feel like, if you're into this, because I am not a RoboCop fan. I'm not. Like, it's not that I dislike it, it's just I never really got into the films. But I ended up playing RoboCop Rogue City. I'm in the middle of it right now. And it's a fantastic game just to get lost in, just to enjoy yourself, just to have some dumb fun. So if you just want to sit down with a controller and be like, it'd be nice to explore a city a little bit. I kind of want to deal with some of these silly conversations. And I also just want to blow people's heads off all at the same time. Perfect game for that. The pacing has been wonderful, to the point where sometimes it's absolutely ridiculous. I will share with you all one of my favorite moments in the game. There's somebody that you're helping out, you as RoboCop, right? And you can establish, because you can make choices in there, you can establish relationships with people and such, and kind of every choice has a action and a reaction. But there's one part in there where there's a character you're helping out, right? He needs to, I swear, this is what happens. He needs to look for a videotape, but he can't remember the name of this movie that he's looking for. So you and him end up going to a video rental store, and you start looking through the movies, and you start showing like, hey, is it this? Is it this? Is it this? And you start talking about the films, and you're having conversations about life and comparisons. And you could either, motivate him or demotivate him, whatever it is there. And this goes on for like 20 minutes, right? My girlfriend was next to me. At one point, she's on her phone, she's looking at things. She looks up from her phone and sees me talking to dudes as RoboCop in a video game, like in a video rental store holding a VHS tape. And she's just like dumbfounded. And she even said out loud, like, are you serious? Why is RoboCop having a full conversation about this? And I was like, no. This is why I like the game so much. This is why I love it so much. Because it is so ridiculous. And it is almost like, in a way, it's it has kind of the same appreciation I can have for this as like the Shenmue games, for example, where the Shenmue games, you have to explore. You're going to have to talk to people. There's going to be times there's nothing for you to do. You're going to have to get a little bored in the game and just kill time and pass time in there. And that's fine, as long as you're okay with that experience. But in a way, RoboCop is kind of tangent to that. RoboCop Rogue City, which you would never expect on there. Funny enough, we end up having kind of a meta conversation too, because I saw a bathroom in this rental shop, and some of you all might actually be young enough or maybe even be in territories where you've never gone to a rental place. But I made a comment about the bathroom because I said, wow, this is actually surprising it's open. Typically in rental shops, they don't let you use the bathroom. And my girlfriend didn't quite remember that. I guess she had been to some where like they let her and it was fine. And I said, yeah, like I remember I used to primarily rent at Blockbuster and the bathroom was for employees only. But I used to go there so often and I was so cool with employees, even as a kid. It's not like I abused it, but there were like 1 or 2 times I really had to go to the bathroom and they keyed me in and they let me in and that was cool. And she was like, oh yeah, that's pretty cool. Then like 2 minutes later, there's a giant firefight that ends up happening and she makes a comment like, see, this is exactly why they don't let strangers and customers use the bathroom in these rental stores. I was like, you're not wrong. You're really not wrong on that. So, RoboCop Rogue City, fantastic. My final comment on this here, I guess until I finish the game, because I do want to finish this here, is that it is an average game that would not review well. And if you look at official reviews, it's average. It gets high 60s, low 70s, right? On paper, it is an average game. If I had to sit and professionally review it, I would give it a very average score. But when you play it, it's different. It is one of my favorite games that I've played. And I feel like anybody, not reviewers, but just friends, family members, just people you know online, anybody who has just sat there and played it for non-professional reasons, for purely enjoyment reasons, I feel like they'll back this up and they'll tell you, yeah, it's an average game. Yeah, it has its flaws, but it's so good. It's like one of the best games ever at the same time, and it's worth playing. So this kind of goes further to back this up for me too. I've always been someone like this. Well, for the most part, I'd say for at least 15 years I've been like this. Reviews don't really do that much for me. If a game is reviewing really high, that alone's not going to impress me. I have to sit there and actually play the game and get my own opinion on it. Because I have played average games like RoboCop that are incredibly awesome to me, and I have played games that get accolades across the board, and I play them, and they're just nothing more than mid to me. So definitely give it a shot. I'll say that. If you're on the fence about it, but if it seems interesting to you, give it a shot. That's what I'm going to recommend. Either way, that is about it for this episode here. I am going to be wrapping this one up. So typically what I do is I pick a keyword or a key phrase, and if you use this keyword or key phrase in a comment on the video upload, I'll know that you've made it to the end of this episode. Now, I think for this, I'm going to use cartoon. How about that? I'm going to use that as a keyword. What was your favorite Saturday morning cartoon? Do you still watch cartoons? Ooh, here's a good one. Do you count anime as a cartoon? Because funny enough, I personally don't. I kind of see it as like a separate genre in there. Yeah, do you still watch cartoons? Do you have a favorite one now? An adult favorite cartoon? A childhood favorite cartoon? Do you have any cartoons that you love to revisit? Let me know. If you use a keyword of cartoon in your comment on the video upload, I'll know that you made it to the end of this episode. Either way, that is about it for this episode of Mario's Minute. Again, if you made it to the end here, thank you so much. I appreciate it, really, especially while I'm a little bit hoarse and sick right now. So I'm going to be resting my voice after this for a bit. Hopefully by next episode, I'm going to sound better. I have some scheduled videos going out already, so this should be like, at least during this time period, this should be the only thing that goes out where I'm going to sound raspy like this. Hopefully I don't get sick again here soon. But either way, that is about it for this episode of Mario's Minute. If you enjoyed it, a like would absolutely be appreciated. If you didn't like it, a dislike is fine as well too. But as I always say, this is Mr. Mario, signing off. Thank you all for listening and watching, everyone. And until next time. Or until next month, actually. Yeah, until next month.